And we're live. Welcome back to another high vibe conversation. I'm your host, 𝗏𝗏𝗲𝗏. With me today are the ever illustrious, is the word that comes to mind, high vibe women, shining here even through the rain in New Jersey right now, and with us all over the world. So thank you for being here. Wherever you are watching in the world, make sure to let us know where you're joining from, whether you're watching live now or the replay later on. We always like to know where we're connecting with people all over the planet. So today we are jumping in and talking about how to trigger-proof your life. So if you've been feeling triggered by all sorts of things, people, circumstances, situations, we are going to talk through some of that today to see what we can do to help bring some sense of calm back to your daily lives. And Stina is our resident expert about trigger proofing things today. So I'm going to jump right to Stina. Stina, you have this amazing book about trigger proofing your life. Let's get started by talking about it a little bit. Like, what prompted you to share this story and talk about trigger proofing? Because people might not know.
Well, this is about the time of year that I wrote the book and published it at the end of the year. And as I'm looking back through the last 6 odd years of my life, December is always this really intense and I guess fruitful month for me. And so it came at the end of a year where I was going through a divorce. I was selling a house. I was moving into my own apartment. And having met my first husband in high school, it was the first time that I was really, truly on my own. And, I had only a year between high school and getting married that I even lived in an apartment with a roommate. Which was the extent of my college experience. So there was this season of meeting myself, finding myself. Even the things that I ate were changing. And I was like, oh, I can have this for dinner because no one else is around. I'm not cooking for anybody. I don't have to satisfy their tastes. And I went through a CR session with Linda and her husband, and that really kicked off this release for me, this relaxation into being. And it's such a slow unfolding. It feels drastic while it's happening, but I look back and I'm like, well, it's still going. There's still more. There's always more to it. So going through that year with all of those transitions and transformations that I was going through was full of triggers. I mean, divorce, I've yet to hear anybody that has had a truly uneventful divorce. It just brings up whatever remnants of things in the relationship that are left, whatever has triggered you in the relationship will now just become 100 times more intense in the divorce process. And, even if you're on your A game and even if things are relatively amicable, which mine was relatively amicable, there's just so much that comes up as you try to establish yourself as an individual from this person that you have been in this cooperative relationship with for so long. I was married for 10 years. And 10 years where my brain was still finishing growing. So there's so much to it. And so for me, and this is kind of before the book, through the book, after the book, I noticed how much energy I was giving to the divorce and to all of the stuff that was coming up and all of the things that my ex was triggering in me through our communications. And I really got to the point of, I'm so sick of this. I was tired of being in the energy of being triggered. And for me, what that was is like, get an email, the whole body goes into like like panic, anxiety response. I feel like I'm in danger. I feel like my life is going to completely just fall apart, like it catastrophizing like to the max of all the terrible things that are going to happen just because of one email. So I just felt so out of control, and I had to really reflect on how much I was giving to this situation, because it's one thing to work through and process. And, like, yes, you need to feel the feelings, and there's just a lot of feelings. And then there's a point where you have to make a deliberate decision that the feelings and all of the things you're now just ruminating, you're now just kind of dwelling in this energy, and it's not serving you, it's not getting you anywhere. It's certainly not helping you create a new life or a trigger-free life. So I had to like see it like a pie chart in my mind and say, what percentage of my energy am I giving to this right now? And it was a huge amount. Like, I mean, it felt like 75%. 75% of my mental, emotional energy is wrapped up in this one person. And it's a person that I have made a deliberate and legal decision to remove from my life, as much as possible. I still co-parent with this person, but we're not in an intimate relationship. So that was like, that struck me that I was giving 75% of my energy to this situation. And then I asked myself, well, how much energy would you like to be giving to this situation? And I was like 1%, because I'm not going to say zero, because it can't be zero. I still have to communicate with this person to parent my children. And that was my like goal. And it's such an intangible goal, but it's like, if I can bring that down to 1%, I can feel good about it. I can be like, I can have some feelings about this for a few minutes, or I can acknowledge that something's coming up, but I want to be able to move on with the rest of my day, with the people that I'm choosing to be in relationship with my new partner, with my kids. Like, I need that energy for these other things to thrive, for my work to grow. And so just keeping that in mind helped me to reduce it down. It's not like an instantaneous, you just do it. But then I could ask myself, like, is this more than 1%? Is this, are you giving more than 1%? Like, shit. Yes, I am. And check that. And yeah, so that was kind of my journey of like reducing that down and having that mindfulness about how much energy I was putting into the triggers in my life.
Thank you for sharing what your experience was like. I love your example of the pie chart, of like giving it a tangible thing, or like a visible thing that you could call, like, and call yourself out on, as opposed to just letting it stay stuck in your brain. By giving it a percentage, by having like a visual thing that you could refer to, even if that visual was just still in your mind and not drawn out on paper or on the screen, you still made it real outside of your thoughts. And that added some level of accountability for yourself to make those subtle changes and shift away from those things, like staying stuck in those things that were constantly like fueling that fire, and re-triggering over and over again. I open this up to the rest of you now. Are there other ways that you've experienced to dial back the triggers, besides a pie chart and giving it a percentage? Like, what ways do you use in your own daily lives or with your clients to help them combat the things that trigger them?
Thank you, Stina, for sharing. Thank you, Shell. So my journey towards a trigger-free life has been realizing that there will always be triggers. the world is full of triggers, and people's behaviors, especially, is an outpour of them. So I get to make a conscious decision on what I allow to trigger me. And when I am triggered, it reveals a part of me that yet gets to heal. When I'm triggered, it tells me that I'm giving power, like Stina is saying, I'm giving power to this person. I'm giving power to this situation. And people will have power over me until I say no. So when I realize that when I'm triggered, that's something for me to explore and discover about myself. Like, why do I care? That's often the question for me. Why do I care? And then I dig deeper and I dig deeper and I dig deeper and I realize I don't. That's such a freeing experience. And sometimes it's like people enter our life with, their baggage or their drama. And with my clients, I go and I get my business card and I slide it over to them on the table and I say, here's my drama. Take my drama. Go ahead. Take my drama. I want you to have it. Just to make the image clear that they choose what they allow in their life. And they can say, oh, okay. Or they can say, no, I don't allow it. I don't want it. And that's been so freeing. I still get triggered. And every time it's something that I get to grow through. And I get to learn more about myself and reclaim my power even deeper and even broader. So I love this topic.
Thank you, Jenny. What's coming to mind as you're sharing about and again, a visual image of like sliding your business card across it in the context of here's my drama. You can take it or leave it, and it's your choice. I so clearly have that phrase in mind that you often use of like where I end and they begin. And for me, we could spend hours talking about all the different things in all the different areas of my life that trigger me throughout the day. But like what's been really helpful lately is noticing other people's triggers and the way that they react. And that awareness outside of myself to be like, the way that they just reacted is not a reflection of me. It's whatever they are going through and processing, which sometimes is a double-edged sword for me because as much as I can empathize and relate to what somebody else is going through, I still want to like have my moment too. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to like downplay what's going on with me because you're having this reaction to something that I said. But just having that awareness of things that are triggering other people has made it clearer for me what triggers me, if that makes sense, because I can see the things that I might have latched onto with other people. And somebody getting triggered by something that I have said in the past or shared might have then compiled. Like I might have then absorbed that reaction or that defensiveness, and that would have been a trigger for me. That is a trigger for me a lot of the time is like, well, why are you coming at me? Like, why are you getting so defensive right now? All I said was this, and it's a gateway to a conversation. It's not the end all be all. Like what I'm saying is not finite, and their defensiveness makes me then defensive. So it's helpful for me to like see it through the lens of somebody else, but then come back to remembering like, why is that triggering me too? And keep myself separate from them. So I love the pie chart visual that Stina gave. I love the idea of like sliding it and letting them decide, is this something that you want to hold on to or not? And just that I'll add the piece of that awareness of others outside of yourself to like bring that whole piece together. Linda, what's coming up for you when we talk about trigger proofing our lives?
It was fun doing the book with Stina, the book in 30 Days Coach. And I was very honored that I was in her world to support her through her divorce process. And I have been divorced as well. And so I know the triggers, and yeah, it was for me the most triggering thing for me, because I'm a clarity coach, right? That's like who I am. I make sense of things. I've always made sense of things all my life. So I get triggered when I can't make sense of things. I get frustrated. And as a manifesting generator, that's like over the line for me. So keeping myself from being frustrated is a lot of times something that I seek. And in my first marriage, the end outcome was, oh, it takes two people. Like I can do all this work of making sense of things and um, communicating what it is that I need, and it takes the other person doing that as well. Because if they don't, then I've got nothing to work with. So that was probably the biggest thing for me when it comes to triggers. My kids were super challenging when I moved to Connecticut from Minnesota. Minnesota's about 3 years ahead in child development as well. And so the moms in Connecticut in my neighborhood were like, oh my gosh, you're so patient. Like, how do you do it? Like, they're seeing me not triggering. And my background is special ed too. And I got to thinking about that. And it's like, finally came up with words for it. It's like, I expect less. And when I expect less, I'm given more. So there's a lot of letting go in that. And I would say that in expecting less, what you're doing for the other person is you're lowering their anxiety to perform, if you will, and feel like they add up and what they do is right, whatever. So I just given more. Uh-oh, Jenny girl. Are we frozen or?
I think we froze a little bit. I know I was having a little bit of difficulty hearing parts of what you were saying towards the end there, Linda. And I think Jenny said she was having a hard time as well. Just in case it's not out there in the world, could you just summarize like the end points of what you were saying? Because if I couldn't hear it and Jenny couldn't hear it, I'm sure others might have missed it too.
Okay, yeah. Well, in my first marriage, I found out that, as much as I was doing my best to make sense of things, it takes two people. So if I don't have the communication that I need, I can't make sense of things. And then when it came to my kids, they were very challenging. And when I moved to Connecticut, the moms in Connecticut were like, oh, you're so patient. How do you do it? And I thought about that over the years. And it was like, even in special ed, I always expected less of my students, and then they always gave me more. So I did that with my own kids as well. And that's what kept me from triggering and kept me being what to them was like, is really patient mom. In Minnesota, we were probably about 3 years ahead developmentally or understanding child development than the moms in Connecticut. Because I sold Discovery Toys and I found that out. I was like, wow, lots of teaching there. But that's does that make sense from what you did get to hear?
Yeah. Thank you for recapping that. I did hear most of that. I just lost the tail end of the expectations, which thank you for bringing it back to that. I think that's so important. Lowering or letting go of some of the expectations that we have, not just for others, but for ourselves. Because I am capable of getting triggered by others and other things around me, but I'm also very capable of triggering myself into something. And it reminds me of a conversation that I was having with a friend earlier this week. I had posted something or shared something in my stories on Instagram, and I forget exactly what the share was. I was just resharing somebody else's clip of something, and they said, this is my life. Like, this is what I go through. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, is that a good thing? Or like, what's going on there? And they shared with me that when they don't perform at their best right out the gate, they spiral and like feel themselves collapse and like break down. And I dug a little deeper there. And the end result of that conversation was just like a gentle reminder to them to let go of some of the expectations that they set for themselves. And could they be happier and feel good about not getting it 100% right the first time around? Could they be okay with not getting it 50% right the first time around, if at all? Like, what would be the bar that they set for themselves, or could lower the bar to and still feel good? And just having those conversations about the expectations that we put on ourselves can remove some of that volatility, those triggers that we feel on a regular basis. So that was a real life example of like, this is somebody that is struggling with this, and hopefully challenging them to reframe the way that they speak to themselves and the way their kindness toward themselves, the empathy and the belief and trust that they have in themselves to get it right and not just be a complete, excuse my language, F up. Their words, not mine. But like, it all comes for me with the work that I do for myself and with my clients so often is about learning to love myself and wanting others to learn to love themselves, believe in themselves, trust that they can figure it out and that they have all the answers that they need. And when we allow other external factors to then influence the way that we feel about ourselves, I think that's where the triggers come into play. So that's what's coming up for me right now. I want to shift gears back to Dorrit over here. Dorrit, what's coming up for you when we talk about trigger proofing our lives?
I haven't discovered how to trigger proof my life, but I have found a way to deal with it that works very well for me. And I want to share that with you guys. Well, like Jenny said, triggers are all around us and they happen when you least expect it. So you can't be prepared all the time. But when you realize that you are in one of those situations, I find it really helpful to just like dial it back, take a couple of deep breaths, have an affirmation that works for you. For me, it is, I have amazing coping skills. So I know that I'm going to cope with this situation. So I will repeat that a few times, and you guys know the other one. So when I'm centered, when I'm calm and I don't let this situation affect me, like trigger me to react in any way, then I can have I know and I trust, because deep down I know how to respond to this and I trust myself to do what is right for me. So that's how I deal with it, and then it just let go, because we can't control everything, and we just have to let go and adapt. It is what it is. so we will find the way that is the best way for us, and if we can like make it change in any way, we can do that. If we see there is nothing we can do about the situation, then just let it go, because the stress can make you sick, and it steals so much time. Like Stina Marie said, it steals so much of your time and your energy. It's just not worth it. So if you can deal with it, deal with it. If not, just let it go.
Thank you, Dora. I love what you've shared about slowing yourself down and doing the affirmation and the deep breaths. And I do love your exercise of that we often see you do right here on the live of recentering yourself with the I know and I trust. I'm hearing a lot today of like the slowing down, the letting go, the lowering expectations, the creating that visual for yourself of how much energy are you actually putting into it versus how much do you want to give to it. Where knowing where you end and where they begin. These are all examples that we share with you from week to week, time after time, and they are welcome here in this conversation. Probably like even more so than in others that we've had, because we've all been able to like add our way to doing it and share examples that we've gone through. And that's the beauty of these high vibe conversations, right? Like when we all add our little bit of like nuggets of expertise and experiences to like form the complete picture and give people the gateways to form their own opinions and figure out what works for them. So is there anything else that's coming up for you ladies about trigger-proofing your life?
I thought of something when Dora said, I haven't figured out how to trigger-proof my life, but I figured out how to, deal with them or handle them. I was thinking it's like baby-proofing your house. You can put all the locks on all the cupboards. You can cover the corners of your coffee table with those soft pads. Like you can do all of these safety things, and they're good to do because you don't want your child to be, pulling a bookshelf down on them. So you anchor it to the wall. Like you take all of these precautions and you do all of these things to baby proof your house. But then you still have to parent and watch the child. You can't then go, well, the house is baby proofed, so I'll just like peace out and, have a good time, kids. And I was thinking for Dora, maybe this is puppy proofing. You just can only do so much because we're still humans and the world is just inherently full of risks. But I thought that was kind of a fun way to think about it because, there's all these things we can do. And then like Dora said, there's just only so much you can do. And then you let it go, you do what you can. And I think we all have reflected like staying present with yourself and just that checking in, and seems to be a common theme for everybody.
And as Jenny was sharing earlier, like the more that you check in with yourself to see why it's actually like triggering you in the first place, and you're like, oh, well, it does bother me. Oh, wait, it doesn't. I love that like admission of like, I was holding on to something for no reason. It didn't serve me. And like that process of letting it go can be really, really effective. To like when you actually realize that it has no weight, that it holds no percentage. And then you can work on lessening and managing. I'll throw in some other words there: navigating with, dealing with, coping with the triggers, since Dora said that she didn't know how to trigger proof, but she could manage and maintain it and deal with them. So whatever your words are, we've all shared real world examples and ways that we've helped navigate these things. And so we invite you to share with us how you're trigger proofing your lives, or if triggers are a thing that you're still regularly navigating and you're not sure how to circumvent these, reach out to us. We are here for you. We can hold space for you. we are more than open to have these conversations with you. We will share that link as well to book calls with us, or just find us wherever your social media heart desires. LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, you name it, we can be found there. Until next week, we've got another high vibe conversation coming at you, and we'll say bye for now. So stay tuned for more.